Welcome to The Journey of a Singer with me, your host, Nick Pritchard. This is the podcast where we dive into the fascinating and unique journeys of those individuals within the creative industry. Today, I had the pleasure of chatting with Jaguar Land Rover automotive designer and my best friend, Alexey Andreev. Alexey and I have known each other for 15 years. We share a passion for the gym, working hard and achieving our lofty ambitions. In today's podcast, we discuss the importance of a strong brand and marketing techniques. Alexey explains how his work ethic and mindset towards the gym has helped to secure his dream job with Jaguar Land Rover. Alexey also shares techniques that have propelled his success working at the prestigious automotive manufacturer. This podcast is also fun and lighthearted. Alexey and I are best friends, and it was great covering a range of entertaining topics. So, sit back and join us on the journey of a singer with today's guest, Alexey Andreev.
We're live.
Yeah, buddy.
This is awesome.
Dude, you know, actually, you are the one person that I've been most excited about having on the podcast.
We've probably wanted to do a podcast together for like 10 years.
Probably 10
years. To sit down like this with a microphone and stuff.
Yeah. We have known each other for how long?
Well, if we were 13, so probably we're about 13, 14 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of enemies.
We were enemies. Yeah.
We were arch nemesis in year 7 and year 8 because there was real rivalry, like competition.
Yeah. Arm wrestles.
Competition for the alpha male.
Who has better abs.
Yeah. Then, when we got to year 9, joined forces.
We joined forces.
And we've been best friends
We've
since.
been best friends.
I can happily say you've been my best friend since year 9.
Dude, it's an honor and the same for you.
Yeah.
100%.
I think one of the most binding things for us two is our shared passion for ambition.
Big time.
I don't think I've ever met anyone.
I tell you what, this is the term that me and you use that probably other people use, but whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And
yeah, whatever it takes.
We've been doing whatever it takes since year 9. The great thing is we both, from a young age, knew exactly what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we both had a game plan. And I think, so far as execution, you've executed more of your game plan. Because I remember when we were chatting in year 10, 11, and you were talking about, you know, car design. I want to be a car designer.
Yep.
You technically achieved that goal, like straight out the bat of uni. Because you'd lined yourself up by doing the course that you did.
Yep.
So that when you came out of uni with the work experience you had, you basically like kicked down the front door into your job. Because so far as I know, not many people from your course get the role that you've got from that.
Yeah. It's very competitive. Like basically, so I probably wanted to do car design since I was 4. I remember I'd draw cars and stuff like that. But my grandma and people around me would say, well, it's not really a real job. It doesn't actually exist. So roundabout when you and I were gymming loads and, you know, talking about ambition, motivation, that's when once I was sitting down and I Googled it one day and I realized absolutely the job of like drawing a car, designing what a car looks like literally exists. And there's no physics involved. There's no maths. It's purely creative. It's not an engineering job. And that's when I was like, that's it. That actually exists. That's my, you know, calling in life. I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that.
We talked about those kind of things, our ambitions, like constantly, and we still do.
Yeah.
And we're constantly reflecting on what we need to do, what's the next thing, how far we've come.
Yeah.
And even though you live in Coventry, we still meet up regularly.
All the time.
And we still, to this day, still into the gym, that still train with the intensity that we trained at the age of 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
And we're going to train after this. We meet up, we train together, we go hard. And I think a lot of that is to do...
We go probably harder than most
professional bodybuilders.
Yeah. Honestly, I honestly think we could train with anyone. We'll match anyone on intensity, 100%.
When we train together is another level, bro. It's another level. We are like, we are animals in that gym. We are crushing the weights. I love
whatever
it so much. Whatever it takes, baby. Which comes from the 5%er, Rich Piana.
Piana.
That was another thing that we bonded over at school was bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I remember one time. Do you remember when you used to hide the pictures of bodybuilders around the library?
We would print out the most niche bodybuilders. You know, we're not talking about like we do Jay Cutler as well, but we're talking about like Mike Katz,
The freaks.
Yeah, the
we
freaks.
would print out freaks and niche classic physiques.
Yeah.
Print photos of them.
I think it's just the satisfaction of watching people's reactions.
And then hide them like around the library and just watch as people looked up and be like, what the hell? And another thing I remember, which was probably even funnier than putting those pictures around the library, was when Peter hacks the system, the school system.
Yeah. So basically what Peter did is he figured out how to send emails that looked like they were from somebody else. So remember that teacher who was always doing like mindfulness every week, he'd like send out a mindfulness video. So Peter figured out how to send an email from what looked like from this guy's email, then got a video of mindfulness, like edited it so after 30 seconds there's just a video of Arnold posing and sent it around.
It was amazing because my teacher was not the brightest, the form tutor, and she thought it was part of the mindfulness thing. So some of the funniest times were from when we were at school.
Yeah.
And we love to reminisce about that because we were top students. We were the hardest working students. There was nobody on our level of revision. To this day, they talk about you and I and how we would go into the exam hall.
Train how you fight, we used to
simulate the exams.
Yeah, because I was listening to like Jocko, or maybe it wasn't Jocko then, but there'd always be like these like Navy SEAL podcasts be like, yeah, train how you fight. So I was thinking, well, so I should simulate the exam conditions.
And I took that from you and I used it in my degrees at uni. I used it for my masters. I would do the same thing. And to this day, and I know this because my brothers are younger than me. My youngest brother's 10 years younger than me.
Right.
They have assemblies and they bring us up and they're like, these two kids went to George Abbott and they simulated the exams, and they talk about how we used to train for exams. Because I would argue, you and I are both smart. Like, we have a good IQ, but there are definitely kids at that school with a higher IQ than us, like undoubtedly.
Oh, loads. Yeah.
But we always...
Especially because you've always been like super good at math stuff, whereas I've been not that good, to be honest.
And you did maths A level.
So basically I did every single paper, every single past paper, hours and hours, supervision, and I still got like nervous in the exam and basically screwed it up. But because I was so prepared, I still was like one off an A star, whatever it was. But that definitely taught me the hard work big time.
And what I loved about that is, so far as I'm aware, you didn't need maths.
No.
Maths, physics.
I didn't need maths or physics at all.
And they're arguably some of the harder A levels you can take. And you did them anyway, and you committed to them anyway.
Yeah.
And I just love that, man, because I'm kind of the same, where the degrees that I've done, international management, masters, economics and sports science degrees, dude, and now I'm singing. Like, were they relevant? Did I need to be doing 15-hour a day revision things to do what I'm doing now? Hell, no. But I literally felt my brain growing like a muscle when I did that stuff. Especially
the maths. I mean, the maths and physics, especially the maths. I think it teaches you, for example, still to this day, when I'm at work and I'm trying to figure out a problem, trying to understand like an engineering input and trying to understand how to think differently about an engineering input. I'm always trying to take things back to like first principles of, trying to derive the problem and or kind of derive a solution out of the problem. Definitely doing math stuff really helped with that, because it makes you think like, okay, what are our elements? Well, we've got this, we've got that. How do these interact, etc., logically? But ultimately, this is the thing. So, we were saying we were both like super into bodybuilding, super into training. That is something that you and I share that we then directly transfer into our professions.
And for some reason, I don't know what it is, there's a lot of bodybuilders that aren't able to transfer that work ethic into finances, relationships, whatever. And we've been able to do that.
Yeah.
And that intensity, when we're at the gym and we're training, that intensity, when you hit that resistance, when I'm working and I hit resistance, I know I can push past it. Yeah. It's like an extra rep.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. I love that like symbiotic relationship between the two.
No, absolutely. And, you know, we still have a long way to go on our journeys to really fulfill all our goals, etc. But fundamentally, it really is that. It's that mental understanding of pushing yourself through something that you don't want to do. And that you can apply that to anything. You could be a freaking, whatever. You could have a cleaning company. You could own a mattress distribution company. You could be a singer. You could be a designer. You could be whatever. You can always apply that principle.
100%.
And that's what's so good about when we meet up. We recalibrate our, whatever it is, our motivation through the gym that way.
It's through the gym and it's through the chats. Like, we basically have had a podcast for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been recorded.
Yeah.
Every time we meet up, this is what
in the sauna as well.
Yeah, sauna chats. I love it.
That's
it,
right.
dude. It's so much fun meeting up. Back to the school thing. That's where I disagree with the people that are like, oh, the school system's broken. I actually think that school teaches you things where your brain grows, and it's up to you to then decide how to use that muscle.
Yeah.
And I think the people that say, oh, the school system's broke, like, it might be in a lot of different areas, but you're still training. If you didn't go to school, the lack of deadlines, the lack of this paper has to be in by here, you got to do this that you don't want to do, you got to then... That level of freedom and flexibility isn't actually good for a growing brain. You need that discipline. You need someone with a cane to be like, you got to get this done. Like,
yeah.
Now we don't have the cane anymore, but
I think as well, like, because we did very like logic-based subjects, no matter what you do, that'll always help you loads. So because we did, maths, physics, obviously I did art and whatnot, but those, no matter what you're going to do, you could be anyone, and just an understanding of doing like maths to a certain level or physics to a certain level, I think really helps. I don't know what school is like if you're doing other subjects, how much it sets you up. Because if you, I guess thinking about it, it is probably like a waste of time if probably now, if I went back to school with what I know now, maybe, I don't know, would I spend as much time on the maths and physics, or would I just start learning whatever I need to do for what I want to do then?
I think you would, because that wide variety is really... It's like,
true.
It's like the latest research they've got on how to be the best possible athlete. What they say now is you should start at the age of 5 doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
So you start with gymnastics, you do that for a couple of years, and then you do everything. You get like a wide base, and then you narrow in on stuff. I think it's so important to have a wide knowledge base.
Yeah. Especially to be if you're doing something creative.
And this is just my opinion. I'm sure there's people that are like, no, you should specify, you should narrow in. But I think having that wide base allows you to think laterally in ways and come up with ideas that other people don't.
True. Actually, I agree with that, because, for example, let's say if you're a designer, whether it be like a product designer, a car designer, or graphic designer, or any sort of creative person in that sense, you need that outside context of the world to come up with new and interesting ideas. And if you're too locked into what you're doing, that's why one of the perks of that sort of career is gathering inspiration, which obviously means not sitting down and doing work, but it means walking around, going to London, going wherever. So actually, you're probably right. If you narrow down too early, maybe it actually wouldn't help that much, because you'd be too, rigid and overly over-focused, if that makes sense. So.
But we also have quite a narrow goal. So whilst we're getting the wide knowledge base, we both had a very narrow fixed goal as to what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But we were willing and flexible and agile enough to navigate through different paths to get to that goal. And we're still on
That's probably the best combination, actually.
Yeah.
You're right.
And we would both, I mean, I would write my stuff down. I used to write down, I have 80% average on my degree. And people would think that's bananas. Like,
Right.
You can't get 80% average. Like, you can't even get 80% on a single paper, because 80% at university level is considered publishable material.
Yeah.
I averaged 80% on my degree and my master's degree.
Right.
And I would write it down and I'd put it whilst I was studying for hours and hours a day, and it'd just be in front of me there.
This is where our method of being motivated is a little bit different. Is I like to use, obviously positive thinking is super important, and I think positively about life all the time and work, whatever. But I like to use the negative aspect of the like nitty gritty of like, you know, I suck. I'm really not good at this. You know, I need to improve. I'm not good enough. If I don't do this, I'm gonna barely make it. If I make it, I'll barely make it. So actually, for me, I was probably different in that sense. And you know, I don't feel in any way, you know, like I've achieved anything yet in my life in that sense. I think it's really important to be super harsh on yourself. Sometimes I could be doing something, I'll be really stressed out, especially like at uni, trying to secure like a job after uni and stuff. I'd be like, damn, I'm going to finish uni, I'm not going to have a job. This is a disaster. It's actually weird. Like, it's really negative. I get like super stressed about it.
And you're right, that is where we have differed in our approaches. Because I remember having this same conversation a few times, and we're literally opposites on that thing. Because I literally brainwash myself. So I'll fall asleep to tapes saying things like, I am the greatest, all this kind of stuff. And I basically brainwash myself.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. Whereas when you're designing something, when you design stuff, you're constantly getting humbled. You know,
I found that really backfired for me in rugby, because it's a team sport. And I was kind of like really trying to be the best that I could be.
Yeah,
and coming across really confident, super backfired, because there's a real culture of being humble, even if you're really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And you never want to say like, I'm the best at this or whatever. But by the way, when I say that these things, I don't go into public and say these. I do subliminal.
It's more for yourself to build
hypnosis is what it is. I have hypnosis tapes that I use quite a lot. And you know, I'm massively into the subconscious mind. I've spoken about it before on this podcast with the reticular activating system, which filters out stimuli, and I'm trying to hypnotize my reticular active system to filter out anything that isn't to do with what I've trained it to do.
It's funny, in what you were saying about the rugby, it's probably the same in my industry, where nobody likes someone who's making it all about themselves or claiming to have done something, because it is probably, and that's what sense similar to rugby, where it's such a team effort. You know, when you work on a car, when I was a student before, I used to think that when you work on a project that you do for example, you know, a car you'll see on the street, very often if you like Google it, it'll be like, this person did that or this person did that. But actually, it's such a long, complicated process. It's such a team effort, you know. It takes multiple people to the point to where you almost forget which bits you did, which bits someone else did, because it's so intermixed.
It's also a societal thing. Like British people, it's more of a conservative culture.
Yeah, so true.
If you go to Dubai, it's all about show. Like and there's less class there. The great thing about Brits is internationally they're known at a certain level to be classy. Even just the way you go to America and they'll talk about how the Brits talk, like the accent. You just sound smarter, is what they say.
Stereotype.
And in the US, it can be a bit more about, you know, the American dream and I made it. And they actually quite respect that.
I think it's one thing I've noticed. I think in America, it's way more accepted to be like super ambitious in a way, whereas probably here it's more, but you're right, because it's more
in this country.
You can't just, if you go out and you're like, I'm going to be a billionaire or something, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. People are like, oh, okay, you know.
Absolutely.
But probably in America, it's like, yeah, man, You got it, bro.
What changed my perspective and actually changed the course of my life was reading the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
And in that book, it talks about talking less. It talks about never seeming too perfect, because people don't like perfect. They hate, like, honestly, if you're doing an amazing job, what benefit do you think it has to you to tell other people how amazing you are?
Right.
They're just going to be jealous. There's very small percentage of the population that will respect that and be like, go for it. Most people will be haters and jealous about it, or will just not care. No one really cares. So what benefit is it to be like shouting about
No, and ultimately ignoring like what anyone else thinks, I think it really is really damaging to state your own achievements and stuff, because as soon as you do well in something, that is your biggest enemy. As soon as you've had even on a small level, where if let's say you're designing for a project and you have a review and the review goes well, and you get this high, and then you're like, I can relax for a bit, and that's your worst enemy, because then you get complacent. So
what is it? Better to overachieve and undersell, right?
Yeah, or something.
As opposed to the opposite. So you don't
under promise over deliver. Under promise over deliver. Yeah.
And then I also heard that it's better to not celebrate as much.
No. Wins. You know what I always think about? You should never, ever, 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 under no circumstances, ever start to celebrate until you've crossed the finish line. And the analogy I always use is when you see a cyclist, right, and they're going and they see the finish line and they're like, woo, put their hands up. They're not over the finish line yet, and then they hit a stone chip or whatever, they fall, and people overtake them or whatever. Or sometimes they fall completely, but sometimes there's someone chasing them, they start celebrating, and that person just about beats them over the line. To be honest, in my opinion, you should always be harsh on yourself in at least I don't know. I mean, maybe you think of it differently, but in the way I think of it, I have to be harsh on myself. I'm not good enough. However, I think of that in the sense of I can do anything, as in you don't want to feel like, oh, I'm not going to be able to achieve anything. But I'd have to do everything possible. And if I slip up even a little amount.
It's really common in the performance industry for people to be really self-critical. Like a lot of people that I've spoken to as performers are really overcritical, because they're watching back tapes of themselves performing. And I think what I've been able to do is be really critical of myself, but just not take it personally.
Yeah. Oh, whereas, you should never take it personal.
I think people in the performance industry look at it and they go, oh, that was shit, therefore I'm shit. I look at it and go, that was shit. What can I do to
exactly
better it next time? I think there's a subtle but big difference there.
No, absolutely. It's the same in any creative industry, even if any design industry as well. If you're receiving feedback, there are people who will take it personal, and that is such the wrong approach. You have to just completely detach from your work, because it's not your soul on a piece of paper. It's not your soul on a object. It's just you just have to face the reality, and really you can't be successful if you don't do that, I think.
Yeah. Well, so here's a little caveat to that. Someone like Kanye West, or someone that's at the top of their game, where everyone that they're reporting to is a yes man. So they're like, yeah, that was amazing, well done, because they don't want.
Yeah, but people like that, they hate those people. Anyone I've met, who I see them as they've made it, the first thing they hate is people who just tell them what they want to hear. In fact, they probably appreciate it when their opinion gets contradicted by someone, because it's a breath of fresh air. Because I have no experience with that, because I'm just in terms of, I'm just working on a working level. But from what I see, I think that's a massive problem for leaders, is just yes men, whether it be like presidents or big CEOs or
That's
whatever.
why it's really crucial for example, presidents to have a wife or partner that can tell it to them straight. I listened to who's the London mayor at the moment?
Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq.
Yeah.
This is totally impartial to the politics. This is just what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And he was saying that basically his wife makes him take out the bins, makes him like do the chores around the house, and so even though they can afford a cleaner. It's not about that. It's about having that person who can tell you when you're in the wrong and can say it to your face, because you get to a certain level and all of a sudden everyone wants to be your friend, everyone wants you, everyone's clapping you, saying yes. For example, you and I also think we can call each other out on stuff, and that's what makes our friendship really great, is we can be honest and kind of call each other out if we're not.
No, I completely agree, and it's really useful having like a like a girlfriend or a wife who does that.
Because I feel like we glanced over it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how many projects we've actually done together. I could just bounce off loads on my hand now. So you designed my YouTube channel logo. You've designed my current logo on my website as well.
Yeah.
You filmed with Peter my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Designed the vegan pots for a supplement company that we kind of like co-worked on, in a sense. The microwave muscle meals that we did together. There's a number of projects. Like, this isn't new. This whole podcasting thing, creative process.
Yeah. We love it. We love it. Yeah,
and you went all the way to Florida to film, produce, and write a documentary on your own back.
Yeah.
Like this creative this is also why I wanted to get you on. You're in a corporate creative profession.
Yeah.
The fundamentals of your job is very creative.
Super creative, yeah. Probably like one of the most creative professions you could get in a way, other than like concept art and film. But yeah, it's really up there. We really always strive to go away from something that is boring or like too feasible. We're always like looking to push and think outside the box. So it's a super, super creative profession, big time. But like you're saying, it has to work in like a corporate environment, if that makes sense.
You're the link between. Are you always limited by like the finance team saying, "Oh, that we can't make that work"? Like in the Ford Ferrari film, where the finance team's always like, "No, it's not possible," or like the logistics, but then the creative people are like, "Oh no, we can do this." And
yeah, you basically have to like strike a balance between what's on this universe, what makes sense to do, and thinking outside the box. Because like 99% of the time, what you think of outside the box is probably pointless because you can't make it or you can't do it. So, you know what? The job is actually all about thinking outside the job within limitations. That's probably what makes design rather than concept art. Because when you're designing something for a film, especially if it's all CGI, there is no limitations. You could do whatever you want. But if you're designing something that has to be mass produced on the road in real life, and that's not just, that doesn't go for just car design. I mean, whoever is probably iPhone designers or, any other product designers, watch designers, anything that's mass produced. I mean, that is really, really difficult because you have to strike a balance of something that's new, that's fresh, that looks good. But at the same time, it has to work. Someone's going to buy it and own it.
Do you eventually get to the point where you have an understanding of the mechanics and
big time. It's a fundamental part of the job. I think if you don't do that, you're not really designing. You think of any object like a camera or whatever, there's manufacturing processes, there's constraints in terms of how it's made, how it's assembled. Like a phone is assembled in a factory. You have to think of a way of how it's going to be assembled, which means that you can't do things which would be difficult for someone to assemble, or etc. And that applies to designing any object, really. What I love about the car design aspect is ultimately any car is, or a lot of cars are like an emotional object, i.e., people like to have a nice car. They could just get the cheapest car, but they don't. They want a nice car. So there's like an emotional connection. It's kind of like a watch. So you can add that element of desire and emotion in there.
That's something
so it makes it more interesting.
I've always wondered, why does a luxury car make you feel a certain way? Why does the human body think that's the car that I want and I'm willing to spend loads of money on it without knowing the performance? It's purely based on the look. Imagine you just had like a beaten down car, right? And then let's say just a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Classic sports car. And you didn't know the performance or the engine. You weren't looking under the bonnet, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
You'd be willing to spend way more on the one that looks the best. And I've just always...
You know what's super interesting about that? You know what I find super fascinating, really fascinates me? Let's say you have a beat up car and a Ferrari, but if the beat up car was in a movie, that car, or was owned by, like Tupac's BMW that's like got bullet holes in it. That is a BMW with bullet holes in it. But because it's Tupac's BMW, it's worth way more than the Ferrari. Or like a Rolex, which is just, you could have like, a Richard Mille super expensive watch, but then a Rolex worn in a film, purely because it has that story attached to it, is worth way more and is way more like desirable. Yeah. I'm trying to really understand, really on a molecular level, the mechanics of why so-and-so celebrity's car who's died, is why that adds so much value, why we really care.
Is it like bragging rights? Is a lot of it bragging? Is it
no,
because
I don't think
they
so,
can go around and be like, I've got Tupac's car? Is that what people...
No, because I've met a lot of people who have some crazy watch collections and they like hide it. They do not, they definitely don't have them to brag.
Is it a Japanese thing where they talk about the energy of an object? Might be a Japanese principle. Are these people buying things because the object holds the energy of Elvis Presley, for example?
Yeah, maybe. I'm really trying to kind of
Elvis's jet is available. I don't know if it's the full jet or if it's still working. At one point it was only 800 grand. I'd have to look into that. But I remember thinking, man, that the Presley estate must now just be thinking, how can we like siphon off, like no one's using this jet.
Yeah.
It's costing us too much. We can siphon it off and put his name under it, and suddenly the value goes up. It's like Simon Sinek. Have you heard of him? You might have seen a few of his videos. He's got a book actually called Start With Why, and it's all about, don't tell people what they're buying, tell people why they're buying it, and it's all about that story.
Yeah.
I'm not a marketer, but my brand is, I think, very strong. If you're booking me to sing somewhere, you're getting a luxury item. It's a luxury product, and I market towards luxury clients. That's kind of my brand at the moment in terms of my music.
Right.
Most of my private clients are luxury end clients, and that's because that's my story. I market towards them. That is the power of a brand. You could be, and I've said this story, not on the podcast, but I've said this to you a few times. There's not much difference in the functionality of a Primark bag and a Gucci bag. Right? Let's say it's 10% different. Like the Gucci bag is maybe 10% different.
Yeah, it's probably like built better and stuff, but yeah, ultimately it's not.
Right. Yeah. But the price is 1,000 times more. Let's say I'm using these as arbitrary.
No, no, I totally get it.
So the price of the Gucci bag is 100 times more than the Primark bag, but the functionality is only 10% different. That is the importance. You have to be 5 to 10% better than the other product. But if you market to the right people, that doesn't make your price 5 to 10% better. It makes it 50 to 100 times better.
Yeah, and I think also, with say a Gucci bag, if you have a Gucci bag, or again, if you wear a Rolex or you even try on a Rolex, the way it makes you feel, I guess that's really what you're paying for. And that is, you're kind of paying for the history of the brand. Gucci's been around for a long time, or Rolex has been around for a long time, and there's so many cool stories attached to it. And so when you own, let's say you have a Gucci bag, or let's say you have a whatever luxury brand it is, you then become part of that story. I think that's a key element. Like, you look at a brand, you really associate kind of positive thoughts with it, like feelings of success with it, like successful people have this brand. And so when you buy into that, you're like, I'm part of this, I'm part of that. And that's absolutely genuine, because you're buying some people are like, oh, why would I pay for that? But actually you're paying for that feeling that you get, and that sense of that positive emotion that you get.
But isn't it funny, if you take it up another level, the people with serious money actually don't buy into that, and they try and buy into like the blander, the clothing.
Well, I think when you go further up, it gets more into something I call stealth wealth, meaning...
Nice, I like that. Stealth.
Meaning, so a Louis Vuitton bag is what, like $5,000, right? And it says LV, 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 LV all over it. But a Birkin bag, do you know what a Birkin bag is?
Are they the ones that are like 85 grand plus?
Yeah, like a Birkin bag. But not only are they 85 plus, you can't just walk in and get one. You have to be a Hermes customer for a long time, and then maybe they put you on a list, and maybe you're offered to buy one if you buy a lot of stuff from Hermes. So it's a two-way brand to client relationship, if that makes sense. And that Birkin bag, even though it's so expensive, so hard to get, that does not say, Hermes, Hermes, Hermes all over it. In fact, the little logo is very, very small. That stealth wealth of kind of not having to shout about it, that's probably what, when you get higher, higher up
you get
in the
to
price points.
a certain point, and it's you almost try and hide it, actually.
Yeah, or maybe it's more classy. Maybe it's just more classy to like not have to shout about it.
For sure it is.
That's probably the way I think of it, is like let's say you're in a room of like 30 people. Probably the toughest, most dangerous person is the one who's like really humble and quiet and nice. Whereas like the dude who's like acting tough is probably insecure about...
For sure. And a lot of the bling, bling, bling is an insecurity about, look how well I'm doing. But I do think there is a cultural thing depending on where you are. Like I've worked a lot in the UK, in Switzerland, in Dubai, in the Middle East. And there's a lot of Dubai where it's like flashy. And if you took those people's income and you matched it to the income of those in the UK, I think those people in the UK would definitely be more conservative, and Swiss as well. They would be a bit more they'd still wear the brands, but they just probably wouldn't wear the like LV sort of thing. They'd probably just have like a little tiny logo in the corner, or not even. There's certain brands that you get where you don't have a logo on their clothing. Yeah. And stuff gets bought.
Oh, big time. For example, the Yeezy foam runner, right? I don't know if you know what that is.
Trainer.
It's like a trainer, which is it's got this like really interesting organic shape, no laces or anything like that. And really
it's like an alien.
Yeah, it looks like an alien basically. And that's just a piece of molded foam, right? It's not that expensive to do really, but it's a very expensive trainer, and I'd definitely see it as like essentially a luxury product. But that does not say anywhere Adidas Yeezy on it. That's my favorite example of something that doesn't have a logo on it at all, like at all.
Should we take a pee break?
Yeah, dude, awesome.
We're on the hour mark as well. Yeah, buddy, we're back.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I like to say on that note is, and I got this from Gary Vee, which is short-term impatience and long-term patience. And that is how I live I wake up and my brain, as soon as I wake up, is like, boom, is like off. What can I do? What can I do to get to the next level? But at the same time, I have this long-term patience. You want the short-term patience of someone with an attention deficit disorder, and the long-term patience of a monk.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because actually one thing that I think is a really interesting point of discussion is nowadays, I think, is the toughest time ever to really pace yourself. And by pace yourself, I don't mean like relax or whatever, but really pace yourself and master a craft, get really good at that craft. And that takes at least 10 years, let's say, right? I mean, there are certain skills, say, for example, in car design, that take, just at least like 8 years to get to like a certain level. And it doesn't matter like how good you, like it just takes 8 years at least probably. Whereas now, all the time, what do we listen to? We see a podcast and it's like, bro, I'm making this 1 million a month Airbnb. Are you doing property? Are you doing investments? Nah, dude, stop working at your 9 to 5 and go do an investment job. or as in like, go invest, do an Airbnb, work for yourself, you should be your own boss. But actually, for example, if you take the CEO of a bank, if you take a CEO of a company, when that person was 30 or that person was 28 or whatever, they were just a dude working for that company. Right? Now looking at them, we're like, yeah, baller, look at that, they're doing so well. But there was a time when they were just someone working at, Andrew Tate would be like, you're a nobody, you're just, you're just working your dead end job, you're just working your 9 to 5. So
I totally agree.
You have to have the patience to master your craft if that's what you're going for. There are people who want to work, say, in science, right? Or whatever other industry, including design, which takes a long time to get to a point where you can be like, yeah, I've made it. You have to, especially nowadays, you have to really stick to that and don't listen to the person telling you to set up an Amazon FBA account, because even I think about that sort of stuff sometimes. I'm like, damn, maybe I want it short term.
We chatted about this the other time we met up, and I remember saying something to you which I think resonated, was imagine you're sitting in traffic and you can see the lane next to you is going faster.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want to get to my destination. So you pull into that lane, and then all of a sudden that lane gets slower and the lane that you were in goes faster. And you're like, God damn, I should be in the other one. You move back. And that's how I think about what you're talking about, is it's not always the best idea to jump ship. Sometimes it takes that knuckling down and that laser focus, and that process can take 10-15 years. There's a great book by Robert Greene called Mastery.
Right.
Same guy that wrote 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
Mastery. Man, it's a great book. And you're so right, because this day and age, people just want it now.
Like, think about
everything now.
If you go on Instagram now, or on YouTube Shorts, or on TikTok, any podcast motivational type content is probably, like, just off the top of my head, 90% Airbnb. You should be doing essentially some form of property, some form of drop shipping, or some form of what's the other one? Affiliate marketing.
Yeah, but dude, that might also be the algorithm kicking in, because the algorithms are so smart these days that, because like my stuff isn't all of that.
No. What I mean is, if you're talking about podcasts which talk about making money, let's say we take the biggest people, right? The biggest social media money making motivational, like Andrew Tate. Who's the guy with the glasses who's about like borrow money? Who's that guy?
Oh, the Chinese
Rich
guy.
Man Poor Dad.
Rich Man Poor Dad. Yeah.
He's always like, borrow money, buy assets, don't buy liabilities. So him, Andrew Tate,
Grant Cardone.
You know the video where he's like, if you're making $400K a year, that's nothing. That's disgusting. I would be ashamed to bring that home, to my wife. Grant Cardone, who else is there?
Gary Vee.
Gary Vee is the only one that I would exclude from that, because he talks a lot about like taking time to like master what you're doing. So I think he's actually good in that aspect. But if you take the majority of the biggest, what's their like core message? And even if they're not saying subscribe to something, like my key point is they're pushing you to try and make money, usually through the same forms of like affiliate marketing, property. It's like nowadays, it's so tempting for so many people who are like struggling within themselves, they want to succeed, they're ambitious, to doubt themselves and be like, damn, like the only way to make money, the only way to be like successful is if I make loads of money really quick on my Etsy store. You should never let that kind of stuff distract you. It's like, if you want to be the top brain surgeon, right? There's no shortcut to be the top brain surgeon. You have to go through first going to the medical school, then doing operations, then doing operations so much that you start to develop your own technique. Then blah, 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 and eventually you're like a top brain surgeon. But at that point, you're like in your 40s at least. You're probably in your 50s. And the most negative message of these podcasts / whatever is money now, you got to be successful now. But some things take a long time to craft.
One thing that I struggle with is exactly what you're talking about. And you know how earlier you said you're jealous of athletes because they're in their prime when they're 25, sort of thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, what's the argument for a performer?
Okay, so
Because I often think, oh, like I'm at my best looking between the ages of 25 and 35. I have to make it in these next 10 years, or my voice is going to be the but there's a lot of argument that is similar, the young man's game in the game of sports.
yeah,
There is some argument to be said about the young man's game in the game of TV, film, singing, because you can only play the teenage heartthrob at one stage in your life. For me, that stage and that opportunity has now, I maybe have 3 more years to make it as a teenage heartthrob in a movie, for example.
right.
And then the boat's gone, the ship sailed.
So linking exactly to that, there's a guy I know who's recently turned like 30 or 31 or whatever, and he's by any normal accounts he's doing really well. Like, I work with him, he's really good at what he does, etc. But he clearly has this thought of like, oh man, I'm 30, haven't really made it yet, I'm still like paying my mortgage, blah blah blah. And I said to him, and I always use the example, I think my mom told me it, but Dustin Hoffman, Dustin Hoffman, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, think about, say, Dustin Hoffman. He, I think, was a nobody failed actor until he was like 40. I think his first like proper big role was in his like late 30s, right? And there's loads of actors like that, but that's just an example. I always think to myself. And I said to him, like, dude, you're 30 now. Dustin Hoffman only started doing big roles in his late 30s. Sure, maybe even in like acting and singing, whatever, there is more of a pressure to do it while you're young. Just because that's the tendency, there are clear and evident examples of people who've done it in their late 30s or whatever. That's one thing I like about Gary Vee, is he's like, you've got time. I didn't start doing something until I was at least like 35, so take your time.
That message needs to be pushed more in general to the masses.
Because you have to master your craft.
You do. And do you know what? There's something beautiful about that. There's something beautiful about, like, why should the 18-year-old be ahead of the 40-year-old? Like, there's something amazing about people that have put in years of work. The reward is going to feel way better to that 40-year-old than the 18-year-old.
Yeah, and ultimately, some paths that people will choose just require you to do that. There's no, like, option,
that hierarchy of things. It's funny because I chatted about this in my first podcast,
right?
And another with Charlotte, a musician busker. And one thing that I asked her was, why is it that some songwriters produce their best work at 17 years old, and then they keep songwriting, and by the time they're 35, it still hasn't eclipsed the 17-year-old? Because you would think any kind of skill is the more you work at it, the better you get. But with songwriting, you can be a 16-year-old kid that makes a hit from zero work. And also, I'm not being funny, but like, I've never really had a singing lesson, really, until I was like 25 years old. And there are certain things where you can, like, I'm never going to be a basketball player, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things where you have such an edge over people.
Oh yeah.
And on a separate note, I think that people should analyze themselves, determine what combination of things they're good at and they enjoy, and that naturally come towards them, and then make that your life mission. And Grant Cardone says stuff like, no, you shouldn't do what you're passionate about, like, you should do things that make you money, and then you'll get passionate about it.
Honestly, dude, this is the thing. I find it ridiculous that, I think that's so damaging. I honestly think that makes so many people depressed when they hear that. Because, dude, if I try to do property, right? Yeah. Fundamentally, I'm not naturally good at that sort of thing.
He's a sales guy. Grant Cardone is naturally good.
Some people are naturally good at that. I'm not going to be naturally good at that. Why would I do something that loads of other people are doing, and loads of other people naturally have the advantage are better at? Why would I do that? It's so weird. Like, but a lot of people listen to that and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay, I'm going to get a rental property, and I'll start with one, and I'll listen to the Samuel Leeds course, and I'll buy the course, and I'll get myself a mentor, and then I'll maybe get 3 rental properties.
Dude, I'm going to address the camera for this one. If you, listen, if you are naturally good at something, and you find that you are getting better at it quicker than your peers, and you enjoy it, then you have to pursue that. That is your life calling that you have to pursue, because you'll do well from it anyway. You've got that natural advantage. It's like when you're 12, 13 years old, you can tell who the best sprinters are and who are built for sprinting, or who's going to be tall, or who's going to be big, or everybody has something within them that is a natural, innate talent. And if you haven't figured out what that is yet, then actually, like Gary Vee says, you should just try loads of things. In your 20s, try loads of things. And whatever the thing that you feel like you're the best at and you enjoy, why wouldn't you pursue that as something, as a career? And even if you're doing a little bit of it a day, like you can still have your job, your 9-to-5 job, which is getting you your steady income. But then why wouldn't you pursue a couple hours of the day?
You have to pursue the thing that comes naturally to you most and that you're best at, or that you enjoy doing.
And what we've done is exactly that.
Yeah.
You and I have relentlessly pursued that, and we did it at an age where we were young enough to take the risk. And I think in some sense what I do is more of a risk because I don't get paid a steady salary.
Yeah.
But we both took the risk on the passion and the thing that we were good at, and we have relentlessly pursued that for the last
because I mean,
15 years.
my mum's obviously like an artist and designer, so I was doing drawing lessons from like the age of 8, surrounded by like artistic graphical thinking and conversations with her, constantly looking at paintings, looking at graphics, looking at proportions, etc. Surrounded by that all my life, always drawing, etc. Why would I drop doing that and do an affiliate marketing, whatever, Etsy store?
You've made that point pretty good to both of us, because I feel like we talked about this before. I mean, we both at some point were like, yeah, maybe we should be doing like...
Yeah, dude, honestly, I've had that. I remember we were like in the pool, like, I'm not immune to it, because I want to be as successful as I can possibly be. I want to do as best as I can possibly do. And so I suffer with those same like inner battles where I'm like, oh man, oh damn, I'm going to do an FBA store. I'm going to do an Amazon store. Yeah, I reckon I could do it. I'm so glad I didn't give into that sort of thing, because you have to pace yourself and be like, you know what? I'm going to stick to it, whatever it takes. And I have the belief in myself that it's going to succeed. And I'm going to master this craft. I'm going to stick to this particular thing.
I'm at a bit of a crossroads at the moment, because I have kind of done all of the venues in London that I want to do, right? I've done all of the like prestigious jazz venues, that bar a couple that I would like to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where does that leave me? What I found is in the UK, because of our conservative nature and the gatekeeper aspect of things, it actually takes a lot of work to get to a certain place. And I've actually achieved more for my career in Dubai over the accumulative space of 5 months than I have doing this for 3 and a bit years professionally in London.
Yeah.
And I'm at a crossroads where, like, dude, yesterday I was looking at Nollywood. You know what that is?
Nollywood? No, what's that?
Do you know what Bollywood is?
Yeah.
So it's like Indian Hollywood. Well, Nollywood is Nigerian Hollywood.
No!
I was like, they're gonna love a British actor over there. Because by
the way, bro, that's not actually that bad.
Well, this is what I'm talking about.
That's actually kind of smart.
I'm at these crossroads. My brain does not stop trying to think outside the box. But it's back to that analogy with the like driving and being in the lane. It's like, do I switch lanes now, or do I stay in this lane, laser focused on the London scene and like plow through London? But I feel like London is like, the amount of work you put in doesn't get you as far. Whereas if I went over to China now, or if I went to Nigeria now, or what I did in Dubai, dude, I excelled over there.
Yeah,
I excelled, and I got all of the castings and all of the jobs. Anything I touched, I got. In London, it's like, do you know how many actors and there are that kind of look like me, and that have better credits? There's not too many that do what I do with the singing, but there are a few guys out there. But do you know how many there are in Nollywood? Probably none.
Zero.
Probably none. So what I did when I went over to Dubai was I saw this quote where it's like, you don't want to be the best at something, you want to be the only. Because when you're the only, you're a monopoly, man.
That's true.
You call the shots. You call how much you want to charge? Oh, I'm in a monopoly. I charge whatever the hell I want to charge.
That's a smart tactic.
And yeah, so I'm at that crossroads now, which kind of goes against what we were saying, because we're talking about now you've got to like knuckle down and stay focused. And I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm maybe going to jump ship.
Yeah, and also this is the thing, with any piece of like life advice comes the other side of the coin. So when you say, I need something now, I need something now, I need something now, the other side of the coin is what we were saying, like you pace yourself away. But when you're saying, it's fine, you've got time, pace yourself, you're going to do, you don't have to succeed by work.
Short-term impatience, long-term patience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you then have to be like, all right, well, if you know you're working hard, then it's okay to think like that, but also you can't use that as an excuse, like,
yeah.
Bro, I've got time. It's fine. Yeah, I'm pacing myself, dude. I'm just, I'm experimenting.
That's why I like the Gary Vee message, because he does talk about the both sides of the coin. And I remember, like, my brother is 7 years younger than me, which is a whole nother lifetime. He's living through the steps in life that I have lived through, right?
Yeah.
So when we meet up, I try and give him some nuggets that might help him along the way that maybe I would have liked to have heard from an older brother at that age. And one time he was like, advice is so circumstantial and personal. Just because that's your life advice doesn't mean that that's going to reflect on me.
Absolutely.
And it's so true. Everyone's life is so different. Any advice you hear, you take with a pinch of salt.
Oh, yeah.
Don't listen to anything anyone says that hasn't achieved anything.
Yeah, and even if someone's achieved something,
and even if they have,
you don't treat it as gospel necessarily, unless it's like they're done exactly what you are trying to do, and
even then, dude. I used to Google all the time rugby players and their Wikipedia page, and actors and their Wikipedia page. All the time, I'd be like, what age did they get this? Or if I followed their path, and then. Yeah. And what I started to realise is I Googled so many different people, and each of them was kind of different. Like, yes, there was a theme where there were certain pathways that you can go down, but if you're not part of those pathways, that doesn't mean that you can't make it in that field.
Yeah.
Because there are so many examples and anomalies.
I'd say the only single rule that you have to follow that will apply always is, are you pushing yourself as much as you possibly can? That rule never goes wrong.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Are you doing whatever it takes? B, are you, and within that, are you doing stuff that you don't really want to do within? Sure, you enjoy the thing, right? But I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care how much you love doing it. There are times you do something that you do not want to do. Whether it's like a bodybuilder dieting for a show, they want to cheat on. The first thing they do as soon as the show's over, they have a cheat meal, right? They want to eat the nice food, but obviously they discipline themselves, so they have that discipline. But you have to always check yourself, like, when's the last time I did something I didn't really want to do, but I did it anyway?
I remember listening to a rugby match, and the commentator goes, you can see he's fed up, and the commentator went, and you have to remember, people, that rugby is still a job. It's still a job, and you can still get fed up with it. It might be the best job in the world if you love rugby, but it's still a job. And I remember thinking at the time I was younger, and I was like, oh, if I was a rugby player, I'd never be fed up or bored of it or anything. And this is a message that I would love to share with people. I've been in a rugby setup. I've lived the life of a full-time rugby athlete, and I've been a professional singer and a professional actor. Those three jobs probably cover a lot of people's dream jobs. If you're like a guy growing up, like, there's probably loads of people that want to be a professional actor, professional singer, professional rugby player.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this from experience, is they are the best jobs in the world if that's what you love to do, but they're still a job. And at some point, you're going to have to do things that are menial tasks, are boring, and you have to push through them.
Yeah.
There is no job in this world that even and this is quite a crude example, dude. Even porn stars, right?
It's true,
dude.
Yeah, it's true.
They're probably smashing Viagra because they're like, I've got to have sex with this girl again. Like, every job becomes a job.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I've realized is you always want to top the next high. Like, I remember coming off the stage, 2,500, 3,000 people at the Dubai Opera House, going to my dressing room, and I was like, I'm gonna allow myself this one moment where I like had this moment to myself.
Yeah.
When that moment was over, I was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And you're trying to top the next thing, which I think, by the way, is a great thing to have in business. Like, you're constantly trying to one up yourself.
Absolutely.
But the things that I do now, to my 15-year-old self, he'd be like, oh, wow. Like, what a life this guy's living. Like, traveling the world, like, filming, being part.
Whereas now, we might take things exactly like 8 years ago, if you would have said to me, oh, you'll be doing this, I'd be like, oh, that's crazy. That's good. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, I'm like taking things for granted. I'm like, no, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. It's interesting, isn't it?
So you got to stay.
Which is also good, because that's part of the progression.
Yes.
Because if you were doing something and you were like always happy with a particular thing, then you're easily satisfied and you can't progress. It's actually it means that you're progressing, because once you get used to like a particular thing that before you would have like died for, that means you're progressing. So it's actually also a good sign.
It's a very good sign. And I think to combat this, by the way, and this is something that I do regularly, in the mornings I have like a little moment to just focus on what I'm appreciating and what I'm grateful for. Because I do say things like, I appreciate traveling the world and singing for a living. Yeah. And I take that moment to appreciate it. And when that moment's done, it's like, okay, what's the next? Like, how do we get to the next stage?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have those moments, not to celebrate too often, but to celebrate the big wins. I think you should do that.
Yeah. And be grateful for them.
And be grateful for
them.
How far you've come. And at the same time, be disgusted at how far you've come. And be repelled by the fact that you're not further than where you can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that mentality. I love the mentality of like, I guess it's slightly different, but it's that thought of like, are you okay?
Oh, dude, wait. I did press the button, didn't I?
Oh, that would be hilarious if you didn't.
Well, I didn't press the button, but we have two audios.
Okay.
From here. It won't sound as clean as this, but it will sound. I'll get it like
with headphones on. I'm happy, bro. It's fun.
I love it. This is what we do anyway. We just meet up, we chat shit. Now we're just professionals.
Oh man, that's good.
Oh man, what can I say? Too many rugby games. I just looked down and I was like, oh shit.
Shit, bro.
Well, I'm a meathead. What can I say? I'm a meathead.
We're meatheads.
Meathead, bro.
Whatever it takes.
Low IQ. EQ, also low. Zero social skills and awareness. No, actually, kind of like what we said at the beginning.
Yep.
I think we've got good IQ.
We do.
Not, we know people that have higher IQ. I think we've got this nice balance of IQ and EQ where I think the reason I did so well in my degree, I got Dean commendation in both my undergrad and master's.
Smashed it, yeah.
But dude, that wasn't to do with my intellect. Like, I would go to the lecturers out of office hours and I would ask about their kids and how their boxing training is going.
Yeah.
And suck a few dicks.
You manipulated them into it.
I think I constantly thought outside the box.
Yep.
And that is why I did well. And if you ask me anything to do with economics now, I couldn't tell you a thing.
Yeah.
But I somehow got an 80% average, which is like close to... I remember one time I'd done this lecture and I went over to the lecturer and I was like, I'm going to get 100% in this exam. And he like laughed at me and he was like, you can't. Long story short, I got 96, 97%. The next week, he came up to me and he was like, we want to put you forward for an economics master's at LSE. And I was just like, I don't want to do that for a start. And also I was like, I'm the last person you'd want on an economics master's. Like, I know nothing about economics. I'm terrible at this. I just knew how to regurgitate the information in a way which was like, that's a mark and that's a mark.
Yeah.
Is that a good way of learning things? Probably not. But it has taught me a skill of how to complete something to a high level that somebody else sees as a high level.
Yep.
It's not necessarily about how smart you are.
No, that's so true. Honestly, like,
I mean, I can't even press play on a podcast. I can't even.
But this is the thing, like, I think my IQ is like maybe just a bit above. I remember in like year 10 when like Peter and like people were like doing IQ tests and his was like 140 or something, or like super high. And I remember doing one and mine was like just above average. I remember being like, nah, let me retry it. Right? I kept like retrying it and it was always like 110. To be honest, I think it's good because I think if you I don't know. I mean, who knows? In like 20 years we can judge, but I'm like, I wouldn't want to be smarter.
Do you know what? I think you're right though. I don't
want a higher IQ anyway.
The smarter you get, like someone like Elon Musk, if you ask him like, what's it like being that smart? I've seen his answer is like, oh dude, you wouldn't want to be this smart. He's like, he looks tired. He's like, it's draining.
Yeah.
It's draining. And also I think once you get past a certain point, you start to realize things that actually make life a little bit sad. Like when you,
we're happy in our bliss, ignorance.
Ignorance is bliss. I'm happy being a meathead, just pumping weights.
Yeah.
If
we don't care.
You know, so long as
at the end of the day, we're lifting weights,
dude. So long as I look huge on this camera, I don't care.
That's right.
What I'm saying.
Well, let me just make
so far as
big.
so far as I,
I'm just relaxing right now.
When I watch this back, I'm gonna watch the full 2 hours. I'm going to watch the full 2 hours with no audio just to see the angles.
You look big. Whoa.
Just to see the angles, bro.
We just want to be big. Oh, okay. Right. This is something we actually have to touch on.
Okay.
AI in creativity. Okay. I'm trying to think how to word this correctly. So, you know, sometimes when you listen to a song and that song you listened to 10 years ago and you haven't listened to it for 10 years and you've listened to it and it takes you back literally to that moment and it's like this super nostalgic feeling, and money cannot buy that. Money cannot buy that. I really think that potentially AI might be able to figure out a way to cater content to you to where each time you consumed it, you'll get that feeling.
Yeah.
Which would be insane.
Well, it would, but then...
And a human can't compete with that.
Here's the thing, right? We discovered many years ago how to become a monster of a human by taking steroids, for example. That doesn't mean we do it. I think there's a downside to all of these things that people aren't taking into account. Like, let's say AI does do that and manages to figure out the exact thing for your algorithm. Well, it will have a decreasing marginal rate of return. So every time that happens, you have to one-up it. It's kind of like the dopamine.
Yeah, maybe, but it'll become like that feeling of being exact. You know, when you watch a movie that just hits the spot exactly, it's exactly like the movie you love.
But why?
AI will be able to cater.
Why does it hit the spot? I think it hits the spot because it comes around once in a while. I don't think you can emulate those situations constantly. You'll become used to it. You'll get accustomed to it. I think that the most pleasurable things in life come after the amount of hardship you've been through. You can't just be, you know, they're saying now that we've become too good at pushing our own buttons. That's the idea of like, we know how to hit the dopamine thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, like, I make it an active decision to suppress the dopamine.
Yeah.
I'll go for long periods of time doing everything in my power to suppress that. AI and hitting those buttons will become to the point where people are like, what the hell is this all about? Like, why am I just constantly trying to... I think that the life...
Yeah, but do you ever, rather than Googling something, are you ever like, I'm not going to Google this and get the answer straight away. I think I'm going to head down to the library and I'm going to research. You know, let's say you're like, do I lay down a wooden floor? I'm not going to Google it today.
Dude, I don't Google it. I chat GPT it.
Well, yeah, there you go. But do you ever, like, honest question, would you ever even consider, let's say the microphone wasn't working or something, you're like, oh, I need to figure out how this works. Let me head down to the library.
No.
And I'm going to get on the tube and I'm going to blah, 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 and then I'm going to find the book, because that's literally how you used to research stuff. Now, would you ever even consider that?
No, but the reason I wouldn't is because it saves me time, and then it's time that I spend on the way I want to live my life. And I think all humans will get to the point where they have that time, because the menial tasks, the like labor jobs are kind of sorted. And everyone will get to a point where you have to decide how you want to live your life.
Right. And a lot of people will say, well, no, AI will never be able to replace the human touch. But I disagree. I don't want to agree. Like, for example, right now with, Mid-Journey and whatever, these AI image creating programs, they can create such awesome images with like a quick prompt, and it takes all the fun out for me, for example, because my whole like part of the fun is I'm like laboring over a sketch, and I'm like, oh, is it gonna work? And then you do it and you're like, damn, I'm so proud, I'm really happy with that image. And it's like this amazing emotional process of like creating an image that's in many senses gone, right? Whether we like it or not, that's gone,
We've got to adapt and move on to the next thing.
We have to adapt.
There's going to be loads of examples like that where it's gone. And then you get to the point where you think, well, where does that leave you as a human being? Well, I think...
Scary.
Everybody will be able to make the choice with their time as to what they want to do. That does not change a thing for me, really.
Yeah.
Sure, the like parameters of the game might change, and then it becomes a different game.
And ultimately, that's how I think of it as well, is... while it's fun to like dabble in like AI dooming, where you're like, AI will just take away our creativity, but actually really thinking about it, the way I think of it is, it's actually a super awesome, amazing, empowering tool that will just allow you to like get to your creative solutions quicker. If you're creating something, the only thing that matters is the end final result, right?
In terms of the consumer products, but
ultimately, I get like you enjoy like creating it as part of the fun, but ultimately, if you've been told, I need you to write a song, someone has got...
Here's an example, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you and I both now had access to everything on an Elon Musk level, right?
Yeah.
Billionaires.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want with your time. We'd still go to the gym because that's what we would want to do, right?
But the gym is the only thing that's immune to AI.
Now that is
true.
That is why
everything is immune. Everything will be affected to AI apart from the gym.
Dude, that is the best way to end this podcast.
Bro.
The gym will never die. We will forever be meatheads.
Yeah.
I will always forget to press the record button.
Woo!
Oh, dude, I can't wait for round 2. We're gonna do this again. We got to end it there because time wise.
Yeah.
But man, I can't wait to do another one of these.
That's awesome.
I think
this was great because this was literally just us chatting.
I think our 18-year-old selves would be like,
yeah, we just did a podcast. That's sick.
Let's call it because I think time wise we gotta
perfect.
Wrap it.
Woo!
Yeah, buddy. Awesome. Hey, I'm gonna press the red button.